Hello, hello. I'm Ghost. I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about various genres of horror. Now, horror is a big genre with a lot of subgenres, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Because there's just a lot to do with the genre. Really, horror is a pretty loose term. It's pretty much just, scary. There's so much we can do with that. So people tend to divide things up into categories to make it easier to find things that they vibe with. Some people might really fuck with psychological. Other people may get really, really into animal horror films. You know, you never know with people, but that's kind of the beauty of subgenres. Being able to throw things into simple little categories is nice because maybe you happen to vibe with a certain type of horror movie and you want to find more of it. Well, that's the beauty of genres. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 subgenres of horror, each getting a little bit more deranged than the last until we're at the absolute bottom of the bottom, the worst of the worst, the most fucked up of the most fucked up. I have 5 genres for you today, and I'm just going to cut the bullshit. Let's get to it. So the first category we're talking about is animal horror. Animal horror is about as mild as it can get. You've got your iconic ones like Cocaine Bear and Sharknado, but we also have what we're talking about today, that being Sharktopus, and we'll also be talking about Rats, which is just a real cinematic masterpiece, let me tell you. Now, neither of these films are particularly good, and to be frank with you, I don't believe that the vast majority of animal horror is good, but they do encapsulate all that animal horror is about, which is being just really fucking dumb. So dumb that it's fun to watch. Because no one really thinks an animal horror movie is scary. If you watched Lake Placid and told me, yeah, no, that shit really fucking creeped me out, I'd punch you because you're a baby. And I'm usually pretty forgiving about people's different feelings towards different genres of horror. But if you find shit like this scary, you better have a good reason to back it up. So, as for Sharktopus, Sharktopus is really quite simple in concept. There's a shark octopus. He's a product of science, a product of too much innovation. This bitch is the modern equivalent of the story of Babylon. We flew too close to the sun. We were doing too much. We were striving too hard for advancement that it all came crashing down. And we released the Sharktopus into the world, and let me tell you, the Sharktopus is not a particularly nice little creature. His favorite thing is to eat people, and that's a real bummer, because I would love a pet Sharktopus. I mean, look at this motherfucker. You cannot tell me that having this guy just, like, in your living room, you know, you're petting him as you're watching fucking, I don't know, One Piece, sounds pretty fire, right? But unfortunately, his favorite thing in the whole wide world is to kill people. Now, I know that sounds like a really good plot so far, but let me tell ya, it does not get any deeper. That's kind of going to be a running theme with a lot of animal horror. There really isn't that much to it. Something happens. Oftentimes, science goes wrong, and then suddenly an animal is unleashed upon the world, wreaking havoc. That is the extent of Sharktopus, and then, you know, your protagonist's like 2 fucking actually worth your time protagonists survive, and yippity-doo-dah, yippity-yay, that's the entire fucking movie. There's no denying that Sharktopus is incredibly fun. It's stupid. I mean, so stupid. It's poorly directed, poorly written, poorly everything, really. But that's exactly why animal horror can be so much fun. And Rats also encapsulates this. What's Rats about? Crazy guy does weird rat-related experiments in an insane asylum, and those rats kill people in the insane asylum. And that's quite literally the entire plot. There's a little bit more about, like, oh, I'm an undercover, like, reporter and stuff, and all that stuff is super great, fine and dandy, but to be honest, I don't fucking care, because all I care about when I'm watching Rats is these poorly modeled rats scurrying around this nasty-ass looking building and fucking eating people to death. There's nothing better than a little bit of animal horror, except for pretty much every other genre of horror. That said, there's certainly a lot here. Velocipaster? Velocipaster? It's really hard to beat animal horror in terms of lack of quality. But moving a little bit lower into our chain of genres. We have... Now we're talking about something a little bit more valuable. Something that's a little bit more iconic. We're talking about the slasher horror film. Now, of course, a lot of slasher horror films are incredibly accessible. I mean, this is only the second genre, so of course it's going to be a pretty accessible genre. That said, it's a little bit more real than animal horror, because sure, you can get stalked by a bear in the woods or something, but it's a lot more horrifying to think about getting hacked up by another human, capable of thought, capable of thinking, really capable of deciding exactly how to approach the scenario. Something that's harder to beat. I think it's a lot harder to survive a human who's hell-bent on killing you than it is, I don't know, a pissed-off raccoon who doesn't have rabies or anything, right? So, that is why slasher's a little bit below. Now, the two movies I've chosen to encapsulate this genre is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Terrifier, which Terrifier half crosses over into a genre I'll mention in a tiny bit, but I digress. Terrifier and Texas Chainsaw both are all about that slimy, grimy, nasty guy running around, swinging a weapon around, and trying to kill you. Texas Chainsaw is also an example of grindhouse horror. Meanwhile, Terrifier is kind of, vibe-wise, a grindhouse horror film, though grindhouse does not exist anymore because there are no more grindhouse theaters. Texas Chainsaw is a film about the, violence against animals, the meat industry, and how horrible it can be. But it also is a film about, angry rednecks saying, "Don't fucking trespass on my property, Jesus Christ, how hard is it for you to understand?" The movie, among people that don't actually watch horror, think of Texas Chainsaw as this really fucked up experience, but really it was only fucked up by 70s standards. Well, there's definitely a gritty realism to the first portion of the movie, everything moving along a little bit slowly, kills being sudden, jarring, just a hit to the head with a hammer, comes out of nowhere, you don't know what to expect half the time, but really what you should expect is the most realistic outcome, until the final act of the film when suddenly everything goes fucking crazy and Grandpa starts sucking on your fingies and dropping a hammer on your head. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw is a weird one. I feel like everyone forgets just how weird it is, but it really is some of the best that the genre has to offer. As for Terrifier, Terrifier represents the more mindless side. I could also talk about Halloween and Friday the 13th, which are the real faces of the genre, but Terrifier is a little bit more my speed, or at least a little bit more this channel's speed, so I'll once again regurgitate a little bit of info about Terrifier. Terrifier is currently a trilogy. It's the modern successor to the slasher film series of the past. Cheap, stupid, straightforward, gets a lot of views when it drops into theaters, and it's a mascot horror film. This horror is fronted by the killer, and the killer is the face of the series. You rarely see things like this anymore. I mean, when you look in the past, we have the Scream franchise, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, we have Friday the 13th franchise. These things, they were serialized constantly, and the main consistency was always your killer. And Terrifier is doing that, but in the modern day. Something which the scene has been sorely missing. Straightforward, no commentary, just a bunch of violence. Now, as I said, this will cross over a little bit into a genre I'll get to later, and we will get there. But one of the most famous parts of Terrifier is its over-the-top violence. I'd say that, in a sense, if it had some type of political messaging, it would be the Texas Chainsaw of modern day, where everyone's really, really shocked by just how far it's willing to go, and just how big its audience is despite how far it is going. Terrifier is a great little series, though. I mean, it gets a lot of hate from, your film nerd piece of shit types, but the truth is that it knows what it is, and it delivers perfectly well on what the viewers want of it. The reason Home Invasion's a step lower than Slasher is simply because it feels just a little bit more real. The idea of someone trespassing into what is supposed to be your safe place is kind of off-putting, right? And my examples for the Home Invasion genre is The Strangers and Angst. Angst is actually a film I've spoken about briefly, in more detail, quite a while ago, but I wouldn't really recommend that video because it's kind of dog shit. So I'll talk about it right now, right here, quite simple. Angst basically is, guy gets released from prison, can't last a single day without immediately going back to his violent ways. He breaks into a family's home, kills every last one of the people in the building, and then eventually gets arrested by the end. The film's been praised for being incredibly disturbing, but the truth is, I wouldn't say so. The most uncomfortable parts are the bathtub drowning and the brutal killing of the mother, the dragging of the bodies underneath the tunnels. There's quite a bit of blood, I'll give it that much. But angst is kind of what the home invasion genre is all about, which is being seriously uncomfortable. Its unpleasant factor, its fucked up factor, doesn't exactly come from, ridiculous gore or really, really gratuitous, over-the-top violence being as transgressive as it can possibly be. No, the off-putting side of it is because everything just kind of slowly moves along. You expect some big explosion of something to happen, but the truth is that it's all pretty evenly spread out. I mean, obviously, a lot of the violence is kind of conglomerated in the center there, but the vast majority of the movie is just it's going step by step, and that's what makes angst uncomfortable. But The Strangers even more powerfully displays this. The Strangers is a movie which has Dennis from fucking It's Always Sunny. That's pretty cool.
Are you saying that you have a collection of skin luggage?
Of course I'm not, Dee. Don't be ridiculous. Think of the smell. You haven't thought of the smell, you bitch!
The Strangers is an even slower movie, really. Not much happens, and you're actually following the survivors, unlike in Angst where you're following the killer. And the entire movie's about just feeling unsafe. The motivation of the killers? Non-existent. They just want to. Why not? What's the reason not to hurt you? What's the reason not to enter your home? We don't know who you are. We don't really give a shit. We're here just to hurt you. And there's nothing else to it. And let me tell you, they succeed in hurting these people quite well. Things do not go well for the poor family that owns this home. And things are not particularly pleasant for the viewer, who watches as people mysteriously appear in the background of scenes, and your protagonist just can't fucking notice because they're just not a very aware person. But the truth is that this could happen to any of us. Plenty of people die during home invasions. Plenty of people are robbed during home invasions every year. And I'm not just talking, in some weird fucking third world-ass country. No. Even in your safest little home that you can imagine, you're still at risk of this. It's the truth, as unpleasant as it is to face. And that's why I believe that the home invasion genre is kind of an important genre, but also just incredibly unpleasant to get through sometimes, in a good way. Splatter is the genre that I was kind of referring to when I said that Terrifier somewhat crosses over into it, but really, splatter films are just movies in which the primary focus is the violence, the gore. It's usually got quite a lot of gore. Terrifier definitely has that, but I'd say that there are definitely movies that encapsulate what splatter film is all about a little bit better. The ones that I've chosen today is Splatter, Naked Blood, and Ichi the Killer. Ichi the Killer is arguably my favorite movie of all time. Its violence is so unbelievably over the top that not much can compare. A single neck slash can send about 432 gallons of fucking blood just streaming out of someone's neck like a fucking hose. It's absolutely ridiculous, and that's exactly why Ichi the Killer is such a fun fucking movie. It's because the blood that should be in every scene, times 1,000. There is never not a ridiculous amount of gore in a violent scene. And honestly, half this fucking movie is ridiculously violent and depraved and deranged. And that's exactly why you're watching it, because you want to watch these depraved Yakuza running around doing God knows what to each other. You never know what to expect, but what you do know is that things are not going to be mild. Each scene seems to get somehow even more far from reality, and yet acts of violence happen all the time. So it kind of nags at the back of your head that the truth is that people this depraved do exist. If someone can imagine it in fiction, chances are someone can want to do it in real life. And that's kind of an unfortunate little thought. But splatter films, of course, the disturbing factor mostly comes from the ridiculous gore and violence, as that is the focus of the genre. Splatter, Naked Blood takes a little bit of a different approach. Rather than it just being constant guts everywhere, it's really more just the horror and discomfort of it comes from the fact that most of the violence, really all of it, is self-inflicted. Radical body piercings given to yourself because suddenly pain feels like pleasure. Pain feels orgasmic, and you'll do anything to yourself, going as far as to eat yourself. That's a pretty wild little thought. I also did a video on this, but I'm also not going to recommend it because it was from the era in which I was using like a $10 microphone. So you can ignore it. But yeah, Splatter Naked Blood, I mean, it has splatter right in the title. Of course it's gonna be a splatter film. And of course there are a bunch of other ones too. The godfather of gore, Herschel Gordon Lewis, has created many splatter films. I chose not to talk about it because, personally, I'm not really super familiar with his work. But Blood Feast is often considered the true first, like, straight-up gore film, splatter film type of ordeal. And Herschel Gordon Lewis is considered the godfather of gore for a reason. Now we're at the bottom, and it's a genre that I actually happen to quite appreciate and have seen quite a lot of, but the vast majority of the films are not particularly good. Today we'll be talking about Faux snuff now, and the movies I've chosen to exemplify this is August Underground and Freezer Baby. Freezer Baby is something I've never spoken about because I literally watched it last night, and it kind of inspired me to make this video. Freezer Baby really has not much happened, but faux snuff, as a genre, is basically just, hey, you know what a snuff film is? It's when people film themselves doing horrible, horrible things to other people. It's, you know, your serial killer basement tapes, that's a fucking snuff film. And that's what this is, except it's fake. Yippee. It's personal, though. That's what makes faux snuff so brutal. Because, A, of course, faux snuff, it's supposed to be snuff, so everything's incredibly over the top and mean-spirited and just god-awful. But also, it's personal because, you know, your perpetrator of these horrible acts is the one that's supposedly behind what's being created. And that's a really uncomfortable, unpleasant feeling. It feels like you're kind of with him. Or her. You never know. Anyway, as for Freezer Baby literally just follows some guy, I think his name is Steven, and it looks like he was storming the Capitol a handful of years ago. But he's like, hey, this is my son, Jacob. I'm pretty certain that my wife was cheating on me, so I decided to fucking murder him. Pulls out a little vaguely baby-shaped garbage bag out of the freezer, puts it back in the freezer, takes it back out of the freezer, puts it on top of the freezer, cuts it up with a cleaver, the whole 9 yards. Wow, what a fucking lovely movie. And get this, it's only 42 minutes. So if you've ever wanted to watch a guy cut a fucking garbage bag and have like a little bit of ketchup spray out or something for like 40 minutes of your life, then this is for you. It's not hard to find. I don't promote piracy, but let me tell you, it's not hard to find. Freezer Baby, absolute dog shit. But also, I mean, I'm definitely going to be joking about it for a long time. On the other hand, August Underground is actually a series I have a lot of respect for. I interviewed the creator, that's on my channel. I've talked about the movies on a good handful of occasions, but I've never really been able to truly go into exactly why I appreciate the series in a nice, direct manner, so I'm going to do that now. This is the faux snuff series for me. August Underground is all about showing serial killers in the least pleasant light possible. It fights against the romanticization of serial killers. All those people that are like, man, Jeffrey Dahmer, so cute. Yeah, this movie exists to show the people that think that, wow, TikTok girl, you need some help, you need some therapy if you genuinely believe this, because this is what these people are doing, this is what these people are like, and there's a reason that most people can't get through this series. It's because it's absolutely ridiculously depraved. Every bad thing you can imagine happens, from pedophilia, necrophilia, and a whole lot of torture and murder. The August Underground series is, you know, one of the faces of extreme cinema. It's certainly on the Rushmore of extreme cinema. And that's something that I can really, really appreciate about it, because its influence is really hard to overstate. I mean, no, it's not one of the ultimate classics of horror, like, you know, say something like Herschel Gordon Lewis is when it comes to extreme horror. But the truth is that despite it not being incredibly old, it's inspired so many people to make faux snuff, because it's one of the earlier examples of this faux snuff type of thing. Hell, found footage hadn't really been a big deal for a particularly long time. I mean, yeah, Blair Witch was more than out at this point, but it hadn't really become the overpopulated genre that it is now. So August Underground was very shocking at release, and to this day, it holds up. It is the pinnacle of faux snuff. Serial killers doing what serial killers do, and none of it isn't shown. Anyway, That's 5 genres. Sorry if it was a little bit all over the place, this video. I gotta admit that there were times I just didn't exactly know what to say, but I hope that it was still relatively informational. Maybe I gave you some movies to check out. Maybe I gave you some movies to avoid. But I appreciate the fact that you got this far into the video, and I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you again soon. See ya.
Freeze, baby!
Ever wondered what the inside of a leg would look like? Sprayed, splayed, and filleted like a side of beef?